Thursday late night, and the Beards are back. Welcome, everybody, back to Big Blue Beards, where we're talking about big boards. Tonight, we've got the draft doctor, K-Sexy, coming on to talk about his big board, and he hates when I call him that, so we're going to do it the whole time. I'm your man, Sergeant Mayhem. Along with always is Monty Cristo. Monty, how are we feeling this week?
Doing good, man. It's just my season right now. I love draft season. I love all the rumors and just hearing everybody only talking about draft prospects. You know, I get yelled at in September when I'm talking about draft prospects. So this is my favorite time of the year.
It is draft month. And, because the NFL season never stops, there's always something to talk about. As a matter of fact, we've got a signing to talk about. The Giants have signed a center, so you can all stop worrying. We're fine. We've got a center. Everybody can relax. What's J.C. Hassenauer? Is that what we're talking about here? Is that I don't care what his name is. He plays center, like so we've got one, and we can all relax now.
Yeah, I mean, hey, no sacks in his entire NFL career. Didn't play very much, but no sacks.
Hey, I don't care how much you play, but as long as you're not like stinking up the place when you're in there, Jack Anderson. So, I mean, he's got some knowledge of the coaching staff. He played with Dable in Alabama.
Yep.
So, a lot of people are underwhelmed, I would say, by this signing, but yeah, I have to admit that. We're not going to freak out because it's, a depth signing, but at least it's a center so that we can stop complaining about we don't have a center. Shane Lemieux is going to be snapping the ball in trap. It's still April, guys. Relax. Take a deep breath. We'll be fine.
Yeah, it's a good start. I think he has 7 games of starting experience, so it's something. You say he's a center. He has experience with Brian Dable. It is. It's a camp. It's not a camp body. I think he probably has a good shot to make this team, but it's an important to have him as far as just adding to the depth. But I mean, it's not necessarily changing this team, but I think it was a good grab for us, and it's clearly going to be a vet minimum. I don't think there's anybody.
Yeah, more than likely. I don't really at this point care about what the contract is. It's like, all right, he's 1.3. Who cares? It's a vet minimum, probably 1-year deal.
Yeah.
If anything, just to back up whatever rookie we take. Speaking of rookies, we're going to bring in now the draft doctor himself, K-Sexy, ladies and gentlemen.
I really hope that nickname doesn't stick.
I can't do Eli's. Round of applause. That's I think it's copyright infringement.
Yeah, no, they'll get us taken down off YouTube.
I would have joined you guys in the beardage, but my daughter decides I'm not her dad if I have a beard, so I have to stick with something a little shorter.
Yeah, still rocking something.
We're not sizist here. I mean, not everybody can pull off that. Not everybody can pull it off.
Fair. That's fair.
It's about fullness, not sizes. You got a full beard.
Absolutely, no patches here.
Yeah,
no patches here. J.C. Hassenauer.
How you feel?
How you feel about that?
He's here. He doesn't really fit the size or the athleticism that you would think Bobby Johnson would look for, but he played with Dave's. And this screams like, hey, this is a good guy. We know he's going to work hard and just let him compete because we got nothing else.
Yeah.
So I'm cool with it.
Yeah, man. I mean, comparing it to like Jack Anderson playing out of position, I think it's an upgrade in some shape or form.
I think Ben Bredesen's probably our best shot right now.
Or Shane Lemieux for that matter.
If he can stay healthy.
Yeah. If his foot doesn't spontaneously combust.
Yeah, I mean, for more than one reason why we need depth here. Yeah.
Again, yes.
Hopefully this new turf is going to help some of that, but we'll see.
But this is a very strong draft for centers. No Linderbaum, but definitely depth all the way through. So I wouldn't be worried too much. I think we're gonna grab somebody. We're gonna come out of the draft with somebody.
All right. Well, speaking of that, let's go ahead. I got it queued up here. So let's go ahead. And, this is your big board. You dropped it today. If you want to, intro it with anything about how you set it up or anything like that, go for it.
One thing I will say, and Monty being somebody who is very draft focused year long as well. It's really crazy to me that, this one small spreadsheet, this screenshot is a culmination of a lot of time, a lot of discussion. It is kind of crazy to just see that, and so there's a sense whenever I do this every year, it's a sense of relief, but also a little bit of sadness because, like April, you're really excited for the draft, but then you have to start over again.
Yeah.
in over the summer and September. Speaking to this draft class, one thing that I'll say is I think this is a better draft year than last year. I did not think last year was a very strong draft class overall. Definitely, not the same amount of top end talent that we've seen a couple of years ago or 3-4 years ago, but what I will say about this year, and Monty, I know you agree with me, the middle class, what I consider pick 30 to 100, I think is a lot stronger in this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you have starter potential all the way down potentially into the triple digits, which is exciting, right? And Giants have 10 draft picks this year.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time to have a lot of picks. Because I think this is just an overall solid draft class. Again, not a whole lot of talent at the top, but hey, we're picking number 25. So I don't really care about that.
That's fair. Yeah. And I agree with you. And, I think one thing to look at, and I think we'll see it next year too, and you might even see it for, I don't know how long this goes on for, but with all those guys who got the extra year from COVID, you'll keep seeing guys now that have 5 years of playing experience, and you see that with a bunch of guys in this class. And I think you still have another couple years of that left, I believe, or 1 year. I don't know, something like that. But you're definitely starting to see it come to a head here with guys who are getting pushed out of college, but they finally kind of put it together. So that's interesting how that'll play a role.
A lot of mature prospects, right? Some higher floor prospects. One of the popular players that everybody seems to be mocking to the Giants potentially at 25, like John Michael Schmitz.
Mm-hmm.
He seems so much more polished than a lot of these other prospects in other years, and that's throughout the draft class.
Yeah, and it looks like he's right there for you. So I want to look at the top of the board too. But while we're on the subject, who are you thinking for the Giants? Who would you like there? What's on your mind? Are you okay with the John Michael Schmitz because it kind of matches up with value there, or where's your head at?
So will I be happy with JMS at 25? I can't say I'd be happy. I don't think I'd be happy with any offensive lineman, simply because while I think the value is he's the number 26 prospect, but I still have him kind of at around 2 value. I only have 18 surefire first round picks, and then maybe up to 25 where you can argue one way or the other. And I think for me, his age kind of limits his ceiling a little bit. And I think overall, he's just a very solid prospect, right? And
yeah,
when you think about last year, and Tyler Linderbaum was my 9th or 10th overall prospect in last year's draft. And he went number 25.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I don't really see that type of upside with JMS. Now, is he a need? Is he going to make the team better? 100%. But I think that, you know, especially with the center class, I think you can get there's not a huge drop off, you know, in you know, round 3 or even round 4. And so I think that would just kind of be a misuse of resources. But, you know, I'm not going to be breaking any TVs if he's a pick.
Yeah. No, I got you there, because like, I'm with you. Like what I've been using when I'm talking about this, I'm like, I'm not gonna complain about you know, upgrading this offensive line, but at the same time, I don't necessarily think it's right value. And I think something to keep in mind here for everybody, you know, watching and looking at this is, you know, although he is number 26 on your board, you'll see a guy like Bijan Robinson, who's number 4. And doesn't mean you're saying taking a running back at 4 is the right decision. It's just you're, you know, when you're ranking this, you correct me if I'm wrong, you're kind of taking positional value out of this and just ranking them how you see them as
Correct.
players. And
Absolutely.
then, you know, drafting them is a whole other issue. Do you have any questions, Sarge? You want to lead off?
I actually was just looking for our mock draft from last week.
Mm-hmm.
I've also got Big Dash just did a 4-round mock draft where he talked a lot about positional value. So I've got his picks written down. So just trying to I'm just looking to see like where we were at as far as the picks that we made,
Gotcha.
and how K-Sexy's got them all ranked here. Because if you remember correctly, last week we took Jordan Addison at 25 with our first pick, and it looks like he's got it ranked inside. Well, you know, he's got a first round grade.
Yeah, sure.
You know?
First
so
round.
if I'm reading this correctly, right, the green, when it says round 1, round 2, that's, you know, late round 1, early round 2, obviously, and then round 2, and then that 2-3 is late 2, early 3, then 3, and then 3, 4, and 4.
This is I guess the sort of point is to transcend, you know, not just within the context of this year, but, you know, would Bijan Robinson, for example, be a top 10 player in terms of talent, right? You know, taking positional value out of this, in any draft. And I'd say, yeah, you know, he's the best running back prospect that we've seen since Saquon, you know, same with, you know, Stroud, Young, Anderson, like they would all be top 10 picks in 2021, 2020, 2024, 2025, you know? And that's kind of how I see it. Right. You know, and and speaking to that middle class, right? This is one of those draft classes where I can see a lot of variance. And I know that there are big boards out there that look a lot different than mine. And that's the beauty of it, right? That's why 32 teams have their own big boards. And to sort of, you know, go back to what you were talking about with positional value, Sarge, you know, I think Joe Shane is such a huge believer in positional value. And so last week when we did make that Addison pick, which, you know, Addison's my favorite wide receiver in the draft. You know, you look at what Joe Shane has done, and he speaks to positional value quite a bit, right? And it seems like he's using free agency the right way, which is low positional value signings. So off-ball linebacker, right? You know, defense, the third defensive line with Rakeem Nunez-Roches, tight end, right? Not guys that are going to command a huge amount of money, but you're getting kind of the top of the position, or at least, you know, a good player in free agency that's not going to really break your bank. And that's how you kind of build, you know, a solid roster, you know, top down. And so it would be another reason why I don't think that John Michael Schmitz or any center is going to be the pick at 25, because there's no positional value, especially in somebody who's a center only. You know, that's one position. Right. You know, I could understand it if there's somebody who can play all three, you know, spots on the interior line, but JMS can't. I don't think he can. At least I don't know about you guys.
That's the other thing that the Giants have done a really good thing with both last year's draft and this year's free agency is they're looking for guys who can play in multiple spots or in multiple different ways. Versatility is the word I was grasping for. So a guy like John Michael Schmitz, who's just, I believe, a pure center, isn't going to give you as much of that positional versatility as, say, somebody else who's played, all up and down the line. But yeah,
100%.
Yeah, definitely. So here I have another question. Speaking, we were talking about the top of the board and like transcending different drafts. There was one thing I was thinking I was looking at. So as far as the purple, would you say, that's kind of like your blue chippers? That's, the blue chip prospects in this draft.
I'd say purple and maybe even to a degree, the dark blue, but definitely the purple. The dark blue, they're pretty close to being. I mean, there are your classic red chippers, right? Blue chippers with maybe one or two things that can sort of knock them down. Jalen Carter kind of speaks for itself with this offseason, right? Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon, I think, are on a completely different tier than any of the other corners. Gonzalez is pretty much a blue chipper, except for he doesn't really have any. He has no weaknesses, I think, but he doesn't have any outstanding traits that are sort of transcendent. You know what I mean? He's just a really good height, weight, speed with fluid hips, right?
Yeah.
Devon Witherspoon, one of the most physical players. He reminds me of Sauce Gardner a lot. But he is a little grabby, and he's like 170, 180 pounds, which gives me a little bit of a pause as well for somebody when be one-on-one expected. He's going to be drafted in the top 10. He's going to be expected to shut down one side of the field, and so that is something that certainly would be a little bit of a concern for me.
Well, I mean, a lot of the top corners in the draft this year are a little grabby because
Absolutely.
They've got that. There's a little bit more leniency, you would say, in college football, whereas NFL refs are going to call those every time, all the time.
I agree.
So that's part of the reason why it's so hard for college corners to transition to the NFL is because of how, let's face it, ticky-tack, the penalty calling can be at times.
1,000%. Couldn't agree more.
So another thing I was saying when I was looking at these, and again, talking to like going into multiple years, if we took, the guys we drafted last year, obviously you won't have a shot at the top of the board, but a Neal and a Thibodeau, off the top of your head, where do you think you would put them in this? Would they be in the purple? Do you have a spot where you think you'd pencil either of those guys in?
Thibodeau would be in the purple. He'd probably be number 5 for me. And then Neal would be in that dark blue. I thought Neal was incredible in terms of size and movement ability, and we've seen this over the course of the year. His balance is the one thing that
was always,
he really he was all over the place in college, and he was all over the place last year, and so he would probably be in the dark blue. But Thibodeau would have been a purple prospect for me.
Makes sense. So one guy I did want to get your take on, and we mentioned a little bit backstage for the show, is, I'm going down the board here, and especially wide receivers, what we're interested in. Jordan Addison and Jack Smith-Jigma. I think those are a lot of guys 1 and 2 right now. I think Jack Smith-Jigma is starting to jump Jordan Addison for a lot of people, but regardless, those seem to be kind of like the top 2 consensus guys. But the same tier, a guy a lot of people aren't as high on right now. Especially post combine. Jalen Hyatt. Tell us why Jalen Hyatt is in the tier with these guys, and do you like him for the Giants, or you just kind of like him in general?
Yeah, with pleasure. Jalen Hyatt might be one of my most favorite wide receivers in this draft, prospects in this draft. I will say, Monty, if JSN was healthy for the entire year, he would be a no-brainer wide receiver 1. I think that's the only reason why I have Addison a little bit, above JSN.
Yeah.
But Jalen Hyatt to me is probably the best deep threat in this draft. And I am aware that Zay Flowers is in this draft. Why? Well, when I look at Jalen Hyatt, right, and the negatives that people will point out is that, he was schemed open a lot. He had all these free releases. How is he going to work versus press? He wasn't asked to run a huge route tree, and I agree. He is a progression. He is a projection in a lot of different ways. But when I see him, right, you look at his hip fluidity. You look at him in and out of his breaks. You look at him once he has the ball in his hands, and I'm not worried about his route running. Does he have to learn how to run routes? Sure. But his route running, I think, is underrated given where people see that. And when I watch, he's smooth. He is so smooth. And talking about his hips and the way that he is able to change direction, it kind of almost is reminiscent of the way that David Wilson back in the day would return kickoffs. He wouldn't, there's no sharp motion there. He can just, bend like water. And he has 2 speeds. His acceleration off the snap is incredible. And if people want to kind of see what I'm talking about, forget the Alabama game where he scored 5 touchdowns. I mean, everybody's watched that game. Watch the week after. Watch him against Kentucky. And and this was right after the Alabama game, so he was bracketed all game long. They always had a safety shading off to the side, which was dangerous because Tennessee also has an excellent wide receiver too in Cedric Tillman. But if you watch the TV version, the commentators will say, "Oh my God, there's a breakdown in coverage. Oh my God, there's a breakdown in coverage." And sometimes there was, but the second touchdown that Jalen Hyatt scored, there was no breakdown. He was just so fast that it looked like it. It was bail coverage on the corner, and they had the deep safety shading over and getting and trying to cover the inside for Hyatt, and he blew by. I mean, he didn't even run a route. He just ran the 9, blew by the corner, and it was so fast that the safety couldn't get there in time, and they called it a blown coverage. No, it was just Jalen Hyatt blowing by the coverage, and that was kind of one of the plays that kind of sold me on him. And then as I continued watching Tennessee, he was open a lot. The cushion that he got from coverage, right? The reason why he got so many free releases is because people were scared of his speed. A free release, is not a bad thing, right? And if you look at his footwork on comebacks, he can beat press, and I think teams were scared of press him because if he beats press, it's a touchdown every single time.
Yep.
Or you got double.
And why do I have Jalen Hyatt over Zay Flowers in a different tier than Zay Flowers? It may not be fair to Flowers, but he is 5'9" with sub 30-inch arms.
Yeah, the arms are big.
Yep. And you can talk about how impressive he is on tape. We're talking about teams that Boston College played, not these freaks in the NFL, right? And catch radius for me is a huge thing. And Zay Flowers is a competitive, fiery player, but he doesn't have the catch radius of some of these other guys, and he doesn't have the catch radius of Jalen Hyatt, who, I think could be, the second coming of Deshaun Jackson, to be honest with you. He has that same sort of speed. And I don't believe that combine time is not. Not going to be talking about Jalen Hyatt for an hour, if you let me. But that's kind of why I have him so high as a top 20 player in this draft.
Yeah. So my question is, if you have Jalen Hyatt that high, why do you have Hendon Hooker so low? Is it just because of the age and the injury, or like just because of the injury but not the age? Why is Hyatt way higher than where you have Hendon Hooker?
Age, injury, scheme, and intermediate to deep accuracy. So a lot of these deep bombs to Hyatt weren't actually great throws. Hyatt has had to slow down for a couple of them. Sorry, I looked at chat and somebody said I sounded like a Philly South Jersey fan. I did live in Philly for 6 years, so maybe that's why I'm talking about PPTVs. I think those are all, definitely, big reasons, right? If it was just one or the other, he'd be a first round pick. I think he has the intelligence, the maturity. But I think that age sort of limits his upside a little bit. The fact that he's rehabbing from injury, so people haven't really had a chance to see, him do any offseason work at all. And then I think scheme is different for when it comes to a wide receiver running routes versus a quarterback who has to go through progressions. That's a much bigger progression. Projection at the next level. And so there's a lot of risk, but obviously Hooker has been so productive that he still makes it close to my top 50,
Makes sense. So I did have a question going back to Hyatt, kind of what we were talking about. Not even a question, just comment really. Is I'm totally with you there with there's definitely I am not huge in Hyatt in some senses, route running, all that stuff. But one thing you mentioned was the combine score or combine time. And it feels like a lot of people were high in Hyatt and kind of got off of that combine time. And one thing I want to say about that, it might not be legitimately said, but I'm not even worried about it. If it's a 4.40, it's so clear on the tape that he has an elite deep speed to his game.
Yeah.
That it's like, keep in mind, guys, 4.40 is fast. These 4.2 guys are not typically the top deep threats in the league. It's the 4.3 to 4.4 guys. Look at Odell Beckham, who ran a 4.42, is one of the fastest people I've ever seen on a football field. Look at Devin Hester, who ran a 4.41, probably one of the fastest people to ever play the game. So maybe he could go faster. We heard rumors of him running 4.3, 4.2s. Might have been made up, might have been a bad day. I don't know. But you can see it on tape. Some guys you got to just kind of look, that's a good enough time. I know what I saw with my eyes. He is special with the speed.
I wanted to also just really quickly, breaking off from that, acknowledge NYG Mason. Shout out from Twitter. But he did ask a question. How does JMS differ from Pouncey Brothers, who both had similar RAS scores? So Mason, a couple of different things. Again, age. Pouncey brothers were a lot younger than JMS. And then also looking at, from what I remember of the Pouncey brothers, and this might be a little bit more geared towards them and the pros, because they college for them was a long time ago. But I distinctly remember them being extremely proficient down the field, blocking down the field. Whereas JMS, very, very good pass protector, probably the best pass protecting center in the draft. Is okay. Is okay down the field. I think the running back's Mohamed Ibrahim, right? Minnesota's running back. He, JMS got a lot of movement at the line of scrimmage, but they didn't do a ton. Not a lot of pulls down the field. They didn't have him going down the field a whole lot, and so I thought he was simply okay. I thought there were other centers that were a little bit more proficient in that. Tippmann being one, Stromberg being another. But I think that would be the biggest difference for me.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I mean, obviously it was a long time ago with the Pouncey brothers, but I mean they were young players on an SEC team, national championship team, and honestly, I thought they played more athletic than they tested. They were, they were big guys, or 6'5", so and I think JMS is a really good player, but he wasn't playing this well when he was 19 years old, which does matter when projecting to the NFL, because the guys who perform at a high level at a younger age typically translate better to the NFL. So let's see. I'm going down the list here of other guys. One other one I mentioned in this tier with Jalin Hyatt is O'Cyrus Torrence. I see O'Cyrus Torrence as somebody who is getting put into the second round. And you mentioned yourself that you necessarily wouldn't be happy with any offensive lineman at 25, but you do have a first round grade in O'Cyrus Torrence. So, what's your opinion on him as like a first round pick in general, if you think that he's deserving of that? And then to us as, a secondary to that.
Yeah. So I think when you look at Torrence, you think he's kind of in that, Gabe Jackson, Larry Warford type of player where, kind of big bodied, really good gap scheme type of, blow you off the ball, but with really decent feet and, not a liability in pass pro. And, you saw that every game. I mean, when I was watching Anthony Richardson, Torrence is just, he's such a solid player, right? And I'm a sucker for players like that. And one player that I really ended up loving, whose name, who's yes, you did hear it there.
Hide it under the table.
The name completely, the Tennessee player who got drafted by the Chiefs in the 6th round.
Trey Smith.
Trey Smith. Yeah. I love Trey Smith. And he I feel like O'Cyrus Torrence is very similar. One of these big bruising guards. That being said, I think there's just going to be better players, or at least, similarly ranked players for us at a higher position of need, at a higher positional value. And again, it's about positional value. Quinn Nelson was a $20 million guard. I get it. But, and so guard costs are going up, but I still think in the grand scheme of things, corner, edge, pass rushing, DL, wide receiver, those are going to take priority for us, I think.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. Sarge, you got anything?
A lot of work went into this, and you guys out there who are watching this, and everybody who's going to watch it later on, I want you to just take a moment to appreciate the amount of time and effort and that went into all of this. I make notes on like slips of paper and stuff. This is, I mean, I do stuff like this for work, but like this is I'm kind of blown away. I'm going through and I'm looking now. I'm kind of wanting to focus in on Let's talk about linebackers. So it looks like, and if I'm reading this correctly, the highest linebacker that you have graded is Jack Campbell. Is that?
Yep.
Did I miss anything? I think I
Nope.
got everybody. So where do you think? Because we know, like, we did upgrade our linebacker position with Bobby Okereke, but we're more than likely still going to take one in the draft. Whereabouts are you thinking linebacker as far as the Giants go? Are you talking,
Just
third round, somewhere
Yeah.
in there, maybe later?
Yeah, so just based off the talent that I think is going to be available at 57, I probably wouldn't go linebacker until the third round. This is a bad linebacker class. I don't like this. I don't like this linebacker class at all. Jack Campbell and Trent Simpson, I have at 41 and 42. I think, they're very, very close for me. It's really hard to compare the two because they're so different in the way that they play. And they're so different in the types of attributes that they have. But those are my top two guys. Jack Campbell is actually a linebacker in the traditional sense. Big, like 6'4", 245, 250. Had an incredible combine, which honestly I was not prepared to see how well he did and how explosive he did. He certainly doesn't look that way when you watch him at Iowa. I mean, he's very good at going sideline to sideline. He can cover. I would be hesitant putting him one-on-one with, like, say, Dallas Goedert, for a division rival, right? Or Logan Thomas, but within a zone coverage, I think he can completely hold his own. And he doesn't miss tackles, which is great. He has a very low missed tackle percentage. Trent Simpson is really kind of an athlete more than a linebacker at this point. And he's one of those guys who's just run and chase, see ball, get ball. And in some ways, I think he's actually a better fit for the Giants than a traditional linebacker like Jack Campbell would be. Trent Simpson is kind of like the same role, at Clemson. I had a hard on for Isaiah Simmons in that draft, and Trent Simpson is not Isaiah Simmons. He doesn't have the length of Isaiah Simmons. He doesn't have the fluidity of Isaiah Simmons. He has the numbers that Isaiah Simmons put up, right? Trent Simpson had a fantastic combine as well, but it's mostly straight line. That being said, I do think he can go laterally, sideline to sideline, but he's somebody I'd be much more comfortable keeping on all three downs. He's somebody who I think that because we have Bobby Okereke and because we have Xavier McKinney, two guys who are capable of wearing that green dot, I don't want Trent Simpson to think. He's not a thinking linebacker. I don't want him to think. I'll get to that question in just a second. But the way I see Trent Simpson is somebody who can blitz, which Wink absolutely needs in a linebacker. Somebody who can man up on some of these terrific tight ends that our division has. And God knows it's been, I don't know. I don't remember the last time a Giants linebacker was able to cover a tight end. So that'd be nice.
Yeah.
And he's somebody,
Antonio Pierce.
Antonio Pierce. My God. Yeah, exactly.
It's been 20. It's been 20 years.
It's been a decade.
We have not been able to cover a tight end in 20 years.
And then, you look at Jalen Hurts, you look at all of these mobile quarterbacks, right? Trent Simpson is the perfect spy. Just have him keep an eye on the quarterback. You demolish these RPOs, right? Is he a reach at 57? Is Jack Campbell a reach at 57? No, I don't think they would be a reach. I would be plenty okay if they were the pick. But again, just knowing Joe Schoen, I don't see the positional value in a second linebacker, your LB2, that's going to play mostly off with a second round pick. I wouldn't be upset with it. I just don't think that it's going to happen. And but neither of those. I have a solid round 2 grade on both of those guys. And they're a top 45 pick, so I wouldn't see them as a reach.
Do you think they would make it there? How do you think there's a chance they're there at 57?
I don't think so. I mean, I think a small trade up could, to the late 40s, you might get one of them. I originally had Drew Sanders as my top linebacker for a little bit, but then I went back and watched him after the combine, and I really cooled off on him. I think he's a little bit more polished than Trent Simpson, but I also don't really think he knows how to play linebacker as well as, say, Jack Campbell or even a Diane Henley. Doesn't have the athleticism of Jack Campbell or Trent Simpson, nor does and he has like a almost 20% missed tackle rate. And so, sorry, that's my dishwasher.
You're good.
but missed tackles for linebacker is something that scares me. So he's still a great prospect and probably the best blitzing off-ball backer in the draft, but he's somebody that I've kind of cooled off on.
Yeah. And the one thing I say, and I agree with you, I think they're probably not there at 57, but I'll say linebacker is a position that I feel like you've seen value be there and where these guys have fallen. So personally at 57, like I do agree the positional value isn't necessarily there, and I don't know if Joe Schoen would do it, but I think that could be a glaring BPA with a guy like Jack Campbell or Trent Simpson there. Or is that what it is? Yeah. So, I'm with you though. The one thing I keep an eye on, I mentioned this in our group chat a while back, but Jack Campbell, Buffalo Bills. Keep an eye on that there. He's been working out with Luke Kuechly a lot. He has, very similar type testing numbers to him. Brandon Beane was there when they drafted Luke Kuechly. Luke Kuechly was a scout in Buffalo. Keep an eye as him as a surprise first round pick. For the Buffalo Bills.
I could see it. I mean, he fits.
Just losing Edmonds.
Yeah, I don't think any of these guys are better than Quay Walker was or Devin Lloyd. I think I was really high on Devin Lloyd, or even Nakobe Dean. Although I think the reason why Nakobe Dean fell a lot was some injury concerns with this. I think it was Pec, but but I didn't see the same sort of aggressiveness, that I saw, or really just the football play. But still good prospects. Pretty terrible linebacker class in general, though.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. Let's see. We've done a lot of talking here on the early parts of this. I want to try to dive into some of your later ones here.
I was just looking too. And it's kind of funny if you see there's Bijan Robinson way up over here at 4, and then the next running back you find is all the way kind of towards the end of the 2-3 range with Tyjae Spears. That's a big gap.
I do have Jahmyr Gibbs.
Oh, do you? Where I must have missed
38. 38, yeah.
Oh yeah, 38. There we go. But still, I mean, we're talking like 4 to 38 and then to 68. Those are some big gaps in there.
So I think this is a very deep running back class, and I think this is actually a very strong running back class. And it's not so much that I dislike Jahmyr Gibbs or Tyjae Spears. It's just that there's a lot of good prospects. And the concerns I have with Tyjae Spears and Jahmyr Gibbs is they're not built like traditional, bell cows that you find, in the first and second round, right? Jahmyr Gibbs, Tyjae Spears, both of them, kind of have this Alvin Kamara vibe to them, right? These sort of like, really, really smooth, lean, sort of cut at full speed type of, slashers. And we don't really see them getting, picked up because, I didn't see a whole lot of, Jahmyr Gibbs or Tyjae Spears in pass pro when I was watching them. And that's going to be a huge thing. Right. And so if you're going to be a first round pick or even a second round pick at running back, you have to be built in a way where you can take a beating. You can take, because think about like the guys that were drafted highly, right? Saquads, right? Breece Hall, he's a big, solid, fast back. Kenneth Walker, again, a bigger height, weight, speed kind of guy. Mason's a Tulane fan. Spears prides himself on pass pro. I guess the games that I watched, I didn't really see it. I'm not saying he can't do it. But he is a little bit on, the smaller end and quicker end. And so obviously, I love Tyjae Spears. He's my RB3. I'd love to see him on the Giants, and the Giants did meet with him. I think, was it a top 30 visit or was it the combine? I'm not sure, but they did meet with him. And he's a video game. He's a Madden creative player, man. I would love to see him in blue. But that's really the big reason why, it's kind of the frame. And then you have some of the more traditional guys like Izzy Abanikanda, Zach Charbonnet, who more sort of fit that role. Izzy, I have an 84. He kind of reminds me of like Matt Breida. Zach Charbonnet. Yeah, I don't really have Zach Charbonnet.
You're low on Charbonnet compared to a lot of people.
Yeah. He kind of reminds me you guys remember Muscle Hamster?
Doug Martin.
He kind of reminds me of Doug Martin a little bit. I think just he was a bell cow for he was UCLA.
In Michigan before that, right?
And Michigan before that. He was a bell cow. Thank you, Mason. It was just a dinner, not a formal visit for Tyjae Spears. Yeah, I'll take a dinner. I'm just happy that the Giants met with him. He was one of the most fun players to watch.
Oh, Mason also says he needs to put on another 10 pounds, but if the Giants are taking him to dinner, you could bet that's happening.
They're already starting.
It's a lot of steak. It's a lot of steak.
Dave's just give him another steak. He needs another steak and double desserts.
But
that's why these 40 times on these guys on these pro days are crappy, is because the Giants are taking these guys out to these giant dinners.
I wanted to talk a little bit about corner. Because
I want to talk a lot about corner.
Yeah, because I think we can pretty much all agree that they're coming out of corner. They're coming out of day one or day two with a corner. And I think there's a player that I'm down on. Not down on, that a lot of people would be excited to see in blue, and that's Deonte Banks. I think there was a slow burn for Banks early, and then after his combine, I think he just kind of blew up, and it felt like almost every Giants fan under the sun really wanted Deonte Banks, and I get it. I don't see much separation between Deonte Banks and Kelly Ringo. And I know that Kelly Ringo has had some bad snaps, but so has Deonte Banks. And one thing that concerns me about Banks is, when it comes to tackling, when it comes to the way he plays, we think of Banks when we watch him, you see aggression, you see somebody who's very confident, right? One of those like alpha corners. But with all of that being said, I don't see him as a great press corner. You know, I think his.
I'm going to butt in real quick because your dishwasher's going off again.
That was my
Chris.
washing machine.
Chris, if you're still out there, this one's for you, buddy. Because I don't know what Monty opened, but he's like, "Did I hear a beer open?"
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Where are you at?
I was so mesmerized by that pour. That was a perfect pour. No. But it was his press. His punch is not as powerful, or it doesn't really have the same sort of knockback that some of these other guys do. He mostly had a two-hand punch. When I look at other corners, Ringo usually uses one hand. Porter uses two hand as well. But when you watch Ringo and when you watch Porter, they actually get a little bit of knockback, and you do see the wide receiver being affected by it. When Banks does get his hands on you, yes, he's powerful, right? But I saw a lot of wide receivers, being able to evade his press way too quickly. He has, to his credit, really great recovery speed, but he falls. He goes into trail technique, way too early because he's beat off the line quite a bit, and that's what really concerns me. Now he's number 32, right? So I still really like him as a prospect, but I don't think he's, as, rock solid of a prospect as, say, Devon Witherspoon or Christian Gonzalez. I think, like I said before, those two are on a different tier for me. I think
that's a general consensus is that those two guys are here.
Yeah.
And everybody else kind of starts here, which is still really, really good.
Absolutely.
And then it kind of, you fluctuates throughout there. So as we're getting kind of close to an hour here, and we don't want to take up a ton of your time, what I want to ask you, and this is kind of an interesting question, is this. Player aside, and we're going to talk about positional value again. Player aside, what do you think are the positions, and let's just say the four, in the first 4 rounds of the draft, because we only have one pick in each round now. Where do you think the Giants go in those first 4 picks? And I'll let you pick the level of importance on that. Or where would you feel comfortable them going?
That's a good question.
Those first 4 picks.
First and second round, I think, have to be corner and wide receiver. And it'll depend on what corner is available and what wide receiver is available, when it comes to, but I think that there's going to be a very strong selection of wide receiver and corner in the second round. I think that you can get a starting caliber player in the second round at either of those positions. So I think whatever you go in the first round, I think you'll be able to go the other for the second round. I feel pretty comfortable in saying that. When it comes to the third and fourth round, I would say, and I think a really underrated need for us, and I think a nice little sweet spot would be somewhere interior defensive line or edge.
Yeah,
I think one of those.
Well, of course he's going to say it, man. His guy Yabsir Abdullah is right there.
I'm probably the highest you'll see on Abdullah. We took him in our in our
We took
last mock, but I think
we took him in our mock because of you were pounding that table. And then Monty went and dropped a bunch of film on us. He's like, "Look at this guy."
Yeah, I was looking. I put it in our chat too. I was sending everybody. I'm like, this guy's awesome.
Yeah. And if you look at all of like the different mock draft simulators and things like that, he's going to be in the late 100s, early 200s. But this is somebody who I would be happy taking in the third round. And I think he'll probably go in that third or fourth round. I mean, his length is an issue, right? I think that's the biggest thing. But you talk about, somebody who's 230, 240 plus pounds, runs somewhere in the 4.4s, has explosive jumps, has production, 10 sacks in 2021 or 10 or 11 sacks in 2021 and 10 sacks in 2022. And just has really nice traits. He's somebody who is comfortable moving forwards and backwards. And what I mean by that is he can drop into coverage, very adequate, will not hurt you in zone coverage. I don't think he was tested much, in man coverage, but in zone coverage, I saw that plenty for Louisville. And he's somebody who obviously works as an edge rusher, and so I think you can't come up with a better fit for a Wink Martindale defense than Abdullah.
Right, so your first four are wide receiver, corner, interior defensive line, and edge. Is that your first?
Interior defensive line or edge? And then I'd probably say interior OL's probably gonna be, in that third or fourth round. If they if they really love somebody, like Stromberg or Oluwatini, somebody like that, I can see them pulling the trigger in round 3. I still feel like I doubt that they go center in round 1 or 2. Will I be surprised? Nothing will surprise me in the draft. I've come to learn not to be surprised. I never have broken a TV, Mike D. I've never broken a TV.
Well, luckily you got a projector, so when you throw it against it,
yes,
breaks.
Yes, I have a projector. I've never broken my projector, but I wouldn't be surprised at anything. The draft is crazy like that, and that's one of the really fun things about the draft. But it should be a fun one. I love April. I took off on Friday. Yeah, I took off from work.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
I got my bachelor trip that weekend, so it's gonna be a good weekend.
Yeah.
Dude, if your bachelor trip is Kansas City, I might have to make the trip. I'm not far.
No. I thought about it. It was just so pricey, so I just got a house in Myrtle Beach with some buddies. We're just gonna watch it and golf and fish and shit like that, and watch the draft on TV.
That's the way to go.
Before we head out, probably about, I would say, a half an hour ago, Art Stapleton tweeted out this: Giants offensive training in Arizona. Listen to the list: Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, so QB1 and QB2 or 3, depending. Saquon, Shep, Darren Waller, Bellinger, Cager, Tommy Sweeney, Dre Miller, who I'm assuming is a practice squad. Isn't he a practice squad guy or one of those the futures deals kids? Anyway, Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, Isaiah Hodgins, Colin Johnson, Jeff Smith, David Sills, Makai Polk, and Khalil Pimpleton. And
they're on full force.
First, they got pretty much the whole offense.
Yeah.
Aside from the offensive line out there. The first comment, or the highest viewed comment on that, is our old friend LPG, and his response is simply, And
Let's
who else
not
do we know who lives out in Arizona?
Mr. Odell Beckham
Swung
Jr.
by the owners meeting to talk to a couple
Odell.
people.
Yeah, Odell's gonna be a Jet.
I'm not saying names.
Odell's gonna be a Jet.
Operation JOB is in full effect.
He's going to be
Carl
a Jet.
Banks.
But if
Carl Banks, we're gonna get you on the show.
maybe they totally blow up this Rodgers situation. He's like, you go there, Zach Wilson, I'm good.
Yeah, he just wants to hang out with Saquon. And
It's funny. We
Shep.
haven't heard anything
Yeah.
about Aaron Rodgers, and at least I'm actually kind of happy with it.
No, I put out a tweet this morning. I was like, last offseason, we had Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson get trade, and Tom Brady retire and unretire before we got any resolution this offseason on Aaron Rodgers.
You know what?
I think we'll actually get.
We needed a break.
I think we'll get resolution on Lamar before we get anything on Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and Lamar. This offseason has been just nothing. Just a lot of buzz and a lot of nothing.
Well, the thing is like Lamar is as much as I love Lamar. Lamar, get yourself some routine, man. Lamar apparently dropped a tweet about wanting to be traded like the minute the AFC coaches press availability went live for the NFL owners meeting. And it's like everybody's sticking mics in John Harbaugh's face. And it's like, did you see what Lamar just tweeted? And he's like, no, I didn't. And it's just, it's a mess. And I am so glad that we are not in that position currently.
Will Levis
and
to
I
the
just
Ravens.
keep my fingers crossed every day that he's not going to wind up in Washington.
It's gonna be interesting. The draft's gonna be extra interesting with all this quarterback controversy. All right. Well, I mean, thank you so much for going over your big board with us. That thing is a monster. There's so much other stuff that I could have even asked you, but there was so much there to go over. You could talk about that thing for hours.
I am working on.
I know, and we sent it out, right, Monty? You tweeted it out as part of the.
Yeah, I quote tweeted his big board.
Good,
and
good, because if you
working
guys
on a
have any
7-round
problems with the
mock
way
draft.
players are ranked, blame him. I didn't
Blame
do any
me.
of this.
Blame
This is
me.
all him.
I'll take all the
Blame
smoke.
him.
But
He wants all of that smoke.
I do. But sometime next week or the week after, I will drop my full. I do an annual 7-round full mock draft, not simulated. I pick every single pick. There's more picks this year.
How long is that? Oh, for the Giants or for the whole?
The whole shebang, all 259 picks.
How long does that take you?
Oh my god,
2 to 3 weeks.
Oh my god.
And so so I made it through round 4, and now we're kind of stretching just how much I know of some of these prospects. And so then it's just going to be relying rounds 5, 6, and 7. I'm going to be relying on reports of people I trust.
make sure the
when the
Eagles
beast
draft
comes out
7
from
punters.
when the beast comes out from Brugler, I'm sure
But he's one of them. I always use that as a good resource for a lot of players that I don't know.
No, go on.
No, go ahead.
Do you ever go back and redo the first 2 rounds, but not try to pull from ones you already did because so much shit changes while you're doing this, or you just leave it? I already did it. It is what it is.
No, I leave it. So I try. So just as an exercise, I try and do it the way teams would do it, not really thinking about picks ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Just what is that best pick for that particular scheme, for that particular team, that particular need, and sort of that situation one at a time. And so I've screwed the Giants, several times. Oh, Mason, that's hilarious. I like to take my time.
That's awesome.
Plenty
Looking
of
forward to checking that out.
This is the After Dark show. So,
But hey, guys, it was a blast. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. And make sure you follow him at KSIXI and go check out his big board. There's a lot to pull from it. He puts a lot of work into that, so you can definitely trust that. He didn't just throw that together with no background information. He does his work. So take a look.
We'll be talking about a lot this month. Yep. I have a feeling.
For sure. I am hyped.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Have a good one, man. Thank you
again
kids, for coming on.
That's going to do it for another. Yeah. Thank you again, K-Sexy. That's going to do it, kids, for this week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit a thumbs up on that. Hit the stupid bell on YouTube so you know when we're going live, because we're going to tell you all the time when we're going live. But that's the way we do it here, kids. Like, subscribe, hit the little bell so you know when we're going live. We're going to do this every Thursday, late night. Although I will say this, more than likely, since Monty's going to be on his bachelor party trip and the draft starts on Thursday, 3 weeks from tonight, we probably will not be going live on Thursday, but we might try to squeeze in a draft roundup show. I'm watching the draft and pouring beer into my face, so more than likely I'll even jump on a
try to do it the day or two before or something. We'll figure out something.
Do something. I'll do something weird. I might go live on Instagram. Who knows? I'm capricious, as they say.
Around.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll see what we can do.
Anyway,
for my man Monte Cristo, I am Sergeant Mayhem. We'll see you next week. Peace.
See you, everyone.